We're back, ladies and gentlemen, with another Criclytics Man vs. Machine episode. It's going to be the Men in Black. Yes, we'll give you a clue before we get started. Yup, you're watching another episode of Man vs. Machine, the Criclytics, where the robots take on, in particular, Brian Lara. We've got Brian in the house. How do you do, Brian?
I'm good, hanging in there. Ahead of the machine at the moment, but this machine is capable of anything, so I have to try to keep that 1 or 2 steps ahead.
I love the modesty that you bring on the show, but at the same time, you've just been trumping the machine like you've said. Let's move on to what we're discussing today, and that is, of course, the Punjab Kings taking on the Rajasthan Royals. We have to get the names right, considering it's been a change for the former. How do you look up at this matchup? Because it's going to be intriguing, isn't it?
Yes, you're looking at two teams that did not qualify for the playoffs last year. Punjab's Kings, not very good at the beginning of the tournament, the first half of it. Came alive, especially when they introduced Chris Gale into the tournament. Still ended up outside the qualifiers, but they did show some promise. And of course, they've got Nicholas Puran, who's been a sensation in the game so far in the last year or so. Rajasthan Royals, mixed. They got so much talent with that team. They've got the most feared fast bowler, Jofra Archer, back in 2020. I know he's unavailable so far in the tournament, but it's a team that it's a very tricky team. You feel that at their best they can take on anybody. So it's a contest to really find out who's going to start with that positive intent, who's going to start with a win, and how it's going to affect them going forward in the tournament.
Yeah, we'll pick the bones out of this particular contest, of course, with the predictions and whatnot, but I want to get your opinion on one of your favourite players, KL Rahul, because he's going to, of course, captain the Punjab Kings. Do you think he's lost his flair, in particular with the captaincy?
I don't really think so. I think in most teams you need that sort of player that's going to guarantee your runs. And he's one of those players good. And what other guys got to do is sort of bat around him and step the tempo up. If my captain is going to be doing this at a strike rate of 125, okay, the rest of us know that, okay, it's up to us now to take the other half of the innings and put the runs on the board. So I like the stability that he brings to the team. Of course, you want to believe that anybody who can bat through an innings, who can score a lot of runs, will always be the man that really put the other team out of reach in terms of getting your total. He has not been able to do that. But if he's giving me runs, I could sort of form the team alongside him, get in some attacking players to really produce the run rate that will give us that unassailable target.
Yeah, it just depends on that batting lineup and how he gels through he wants to bat through the innings. Only time will tell, of course, if he continues to play the same way like he did last year. Let's switch focus to Rajasthan Royals, because Sanju Samson is going to be taking the captaincy there. And you made a valid point, of course, earlier this week, the fact that Owen Morgan cost KKR an overseas spot. The fact that Steve Smith is now gone, they've got like an Indian captain in charge. Do you think that they will probably tinker with that 4th spot?
Well, I mean, Owen Morgan, if you want to compare Owen Morgan to Josh Butler or to Ben Stokes, that's an unfair comparison, because those two guys will make any team, any 11 in the IPL. So if the captaincy was handed to one of those two guys, I don't think you're actually blocking anybody from getting in, as is the case with Owen Morgan. My situation with Sanju Samson, is he captaincy material? You look at his batting, sometimes it's reckless, entertaining. He's a very attractive player. Sometimes, there's a bit of a brain fade that's going on. How is that sort of form, how is that sort of approach to batting going to affect the team?
Yeah, I think maybe they're instilling that faith in him in terms of whether the maturity will come in this season. If he can, of course, be exuberant like he has been, it would be a match made in heaven for Rajasthan Royals. Let's, of course, just focus on them a little bit more, because no Jofra Archer, of course, for the first couple of games due to that injury. Do you think that would be a big cause for concern? Because last year we saw how it was chalk and cheese with him and without him.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a big loss for them. That fear factor with that 4 overs that Jofra Archer has in a T20 game, and the opposing team will, be very, very fearful. He's not being there. I don't know if the attack has matured enough to handle without him. I know they brought in Chris Morris. He's a very experienced player. Can he fit that bill? Can he, turn things around and be the Jofra Archer of the team? I'm not 100% sure, but obviously he offers a lot more in terms of batting and stuff like that. But Jofra Archer, I'm almost sure that they'd love to have him from the very start of the tournament. So a little bit of that fear factor that Rajasthan Royals had would have just disappeared with his absence.
Yeah, food for thought that. When we move on and take a look at Archer, of course, particularly against Punjab, they're going to be missing out. Speaking of Punjab, let's put the 1 minute pitch on here, guys, for Brian Lara and get his verdict of who they should play in terms of 4 overseas players. Now, we know, of course, Nicholas Pooran, Chris Gale's in the mix. Brian, I'll let you take the calls here. Your 4 picks for Punjab Kings this season.
Well, I'm going to go straight for the pace. I'm going to go with Riley Meredith and Jai Richardson as the 2 guys that they must play. Inject some pace, look to destroy the opposition with the ball. And, of course, Nicholas Pooran is a certainty. My situation with Chris Gale, because I was adamant that he should have been in the tournament at some point in time last season. When he came in, he was impactful. But it's a different scenario. It's psychologically, when he's got 14 games ahead of him, his age 41, 42, I'm not sure. He should be used sparingly. He should be used as that shock player. I'm not saying, you give him 3 games, he didn't perform, and then he's out. Chris Gale is Chris Gale. He's the most feared batsman in the T20 version of the game. Can he play 14 games? I'm not sure. So I would start with him, look to see if he can get a couple good innings, pull him out, bring him back in. So my 4 for that match is Chris Gale, Nicholas Pooran, Riley Meredith, and Jai Richardson.
I love it. It's just the West Indian flair of the Australian pace, and that could be a perfect recipe for Kings 11 Punjab Kings. They just need to get that right. We apologise because you guys back home must be making the same mistake. Brian's probably been a quicker learner than me. Let's move on to the predictions then, because that's where it really matters. The Criclytics Man versus Machine. Let's give you, of course, an overall standing right now with regards to Brian being 5-1 up in this particular Man vs Machine contest. Let's move on to off the batsmen first, and it of course is suggesting Chris Gale to bag the most amount of runs in this match. Brian, agree or disagree?
I totally disagree. I think it's early days, and Chris Gale will be wanting to find his foot. Everyone knows his capabilities. I think he would need to be there for a couple matches. Get himself acclimatized and see what happens. So I'm not backing Chris Gale in this particular match to get the most runs.
Okay, then who's so? Because you can't choose any of the wicket-keepers, which includes Sanju Samson, KL Rahul, Joss Butler, and you can't choose Ben Stokes because he's an all-rounder. So in terms of batsmen, the other options you have is perhaps David Malan if he gets the nod, or Nicholas Pooran. So who is your guy to pick out and watch for this?
My guy's going to be Nicholas Pooran to score runs. I think he's going to be asked to take a lot more responsibility when the innings coming out, maybe around number 4. And he's got a great technique. He's got the power. He can calm things down. He can speed things up whenever he's ready. I think he's a good, versatile player. And when he's striking it and when he's on the attack, there's few guys that can hit the ball as cleanly as he does.
Yep, those absolutely sum up Nicholas Pooran and how he's been displaying his fireworks in the IPL. Let's move on then to the bowlers, because this is where it gets interesting here. Who's going to take the most amount of wickets? Criclytics agrees with a man to what you mentioned earlier, Brian, Jai Richardson. They think that he's going to bag the most wickets. You agree or disagree?
I disagree. Give me my options, because I disagree. I think that the fast bowlers coming in and playing the tournament for the first time after quarantine and all that stuff, I think it's going to take some time to massage them in. I'm looking more at local talent.
Okay, I'll give you options. So you have, of course, Riley Meredith, another man you mentioned. Then Rajasthan, of course, have someone like Chetan Sakaria, Karthik Tyagi, who impressed last year. He was in the Indian squad, remember. Then they have the spinners in Shreyas Gopal. Punjab, not to forget their spinners in Murugan Ashwin and Ravi Bishnoi. So who do you think will probably bag the most wickets, considering it's at the Wankhede?
I think it's going to be Tyagi. I think, especially if they get an opportunity to bowl first and they have to take chances against different bowlers, that might be one of the bowlers they could be targeting. I was pretty impressed with his season last year alongside Jofra Archer. I think he's a guy with a great future ahead of him, very young. but I think he's right to really and truly show everybody what he's capable of.
Okay, finally, let's move on to the all-rounders, and these are the guys who get you the most amount of points, remember. Now, Criclytics suggests Ben Stokes, considering he opens the batting and he, of course, will bowl the 4 overs. Brad, do you agree or disagree? Is this a relatively fair choice?
It's a good choice. He's got to play a huge part in most of Rajasthan Royals' wins. But I would go back to the man that surprised us last year and say Tewatia. If he's on the field with his leg spin and left-handed batting, I think he was a surprise last year for me. I'm not sure if he was for all Indians, but seeing him for the first time, I was pretty impressed with his confidence. So I'm going to go back with him as the all-rounder that's going to shine.
I love that. The fact that you picked another left-hander, there's something about you guys. Let's move on to the wicket-keepers, and this is where you can go gung-ho with your selections in terms of KL Rahul, Sanju Samson and whatnot. Josh Butler's part of that list as well. Criclytics suggests, no, wait for it. Brad, I want you to tell me what you think before I tell you what the machine thinks.
Okay, Josh Butler is out of form, but he's going to find form in a league that he loves. He's going to be under less pressure. He's decided to play the IPL. They've been away for a very long time playing international cricket with England. I think he's going to settle in comfortably and decided, listen, I've got to play a big part in this tournament. So I'm going to give him the edge in terms of a wicket-keeper batsman to be my choice in this encounter.
Okay, picking Josh Butler bold over there because KL Rahul and Sanju Samson will be leading their side. So it'll be good to see if the machine wins or Brian wins in this one. And finally, the prediction 5, which matters the most to many fans in the comments, is what we're getting, is prediction 5. Who will win this particular contest? 60% win prediction according to Criclytics to Rajasthan's favour, because given the fact that they will play the conditions better the Wankhede. Do you agree or disagree?
I totally agree on this one. I think Rajasthan Royals, for me, has a very good team. A lot of people would underrate them because of the absence of Jofra Archer. But when you look at that squad, they've got a lot of match winners. And that's what I'm banking on. The fact that their match winners are there. The Ben Stokes, the Sanju Samson, the Josh Butler. These guys can really turn it on. And on their day, you know, they can really swing the game towards their team.
I love the fact that you have no nepotism because your favourite player, KL Rahul, is going to be in the opposite quarter, but you've still gone for Rajasthan Royals. You're putting sentiment aside. Is that what we get from Brian Lara right now? But lastly, fantasy picks here. Captain and vice captain, before you go, just shout it out loud, because according to the FRC, which is the Fantasy Research Centre, it's KL Rahul and Chris Morris, someone that you mentioned, of course. They paid the big bucks for him. Do you think he can be the fantasy player to watch out for?
Yeah, they're pretty strong contenders for that spot. But I'm going to go with Tewatia. I'm going to go with Ben Stokes as my 2 guys that are going to lead that fantasy team for me, vice captain and captain.
Okay, Jaipur people, if you're watching this, Rajasthani people, if you're watching this, watch this closer, because he's gone for Ben Stokes as captain. Of course, Rahul Tewatia as vice captain, and Rajasthan to win the game. It's a super Sunday, but this, of course, is a manic Monday, considering it's going to be one of those days in the IPL. Brian, it's been fun as well, and wish you luck on the coming weeks against the robot. We'll see you then, but until then, it's a goodbye from us.
Thank you.
That was Brian shedding a light on just who's going to win this manic Monday encounter between Rajasthan Royals and, of course, the Punjab Kings, before we get it wrong once again. See you later. We'll catch you soon.